Not to brag, but we've already had the chance to play the first 3 hours of Resident Evil Requiem. It was a session that left us with a very good feeling, and it also confirmed that the new entry in the series is going for two clearly distinct playstyles: a more action-oriented approach with Leon Kennedy, and a pure survival horror focus with Grace Ashcroft. Resident Evil Requiem launches on Nintendo Switch 2 on February 27th, the same day as on the rest of the platforms. And while our hands-on was on PS5 Pro, what we played gave us a very clear idea of what we can expect on Nintendo's console, and expectations are high. Leon S. Kennedy's sections are clearly built around a more offensive mindset. He isn't, nor does he feel, particularly agile, but he can pull off a wide range of moves that you can even chain together. It's a combat shooter that encourages you to be aggressive, but without turning it into a wild shooter, keeping that trademark series tension intact. But Leon isn't the only one who's evolved. Zombies are now smarter and pose a much bigger threat than in previous entries. Now they can grab weapons from the environment, like chainsaws or knives, to unleash deadly attacks and quickly close in on you. They can even drive vehicles, which adds entirely new situation to the formula. And because they're more intelligent, you'll likely hear them talking or muttering things as they stalk you. An unsettling detail that enhances the atmosphere and gives Resident Evil a fresh edge. On top of all that, they're incredibly tough, so don't expect to drop them easily with bullets alone. That forces you to manage ammo with a very clear head and look for alternate ways to deal with them, something that connects directly with the series' survival horror spirit, even in these more action-leaning sections. Overall, Leon gave us sensations very similar to Resident Evil 4. Action without losing the fear or the tension. Capcom seems to have found the perfect balance for this character, delivering satisfying fights that don't sacrifice what makes Resident Evil feel like Resident Evil. Now, if Leon's sections lean into action, Grace Ashcroft go in the complete opposite direction. Here, the focus is far more terrifying, and you play in first person by default, although you can switch perspective at any time from the menu to steer the experience a bit more toward action. Even so, this part of the game is built around pure, no-nonsense survival. Taking down enemies with brute force is much harder than in Leon's sections. Here, you need to rely on stealth, hiding, and using different movement strategies to push forward. In fact, you can interact with the environment's light switches to illuminate dark areas or use the darkness to your advantage. And you can also use the flashlight, just like in the other games in the series. Ammunition is relatively limited, and melee weapons are interchangeable. You can use them until they break. Most of the time, however, it's just not worth standing your ground against most enemies you run into. By far, the smartest option is usually just to run, which creates a constant sense of pressure that we loved. The environment becomes one of this entry's main characters. It's not only there to interact with during encounters, but exploring it is mandatory if you want resources and to survive. It really reminded us of the way the original Resident Evil was structured, pushing forward without being entirely sure where you're supposed to go, finding your route through trial and error. The equivalent of the original game's mansion is now an old hospital packed with secrets. It's a brilliantly built map where enemies always catch you off guard, and where every step you take could be your last. A lot of Resident Evil Requiem's mechanics revolve around solving puzzles, collecting keys, and experimenting with the environment. Puzzles are plentiful and woven into the adventure extremely well, creating a mix of tension, stealth, combat, and brain teasers that flows pretty naturally. On top of that, examining objects is once again crucial for figuring out how to progress. Grace can even craft useful items with materials she finds around the hospital. And what's more, by bringing analytical samples to certain analyzers, you'll unlock new crafting recipes. So the more you explore, the bigger the payoff. One of the standout additions is the hemolytic injector, a special drug that destroys infected blood cells. So this prevents corpses from mutating and can even be used to stealthily take out enemies. It's a new kind of offensive option that, alongside firearms, gives players different ways to move forward through the adventure. The inventory starts out with a capacity of only 8 slots, which forces you to manage carefully what you want to keep and what you don't. But honestly, you're never gonna have spare room to stockpile resources, so every decision matters. And if you do get lost, the map is genuinely helpful. It marks the rooms and what kind of key each door requires, a quality of life touch that's welcome without breaking the tension or making the experience too easy. The game also feels smart in the way it sends you back through different areas to obtain items that open up new paths, with backtracking that makes you remember where you spotted that little slot where you can set a jewel that works as a key. It's a structure that draws directly from the classics, and it works brilliantly well. The PlayStation 5 Pro version also includes motion aiming, a refined system that we hope to see implemented on the Nintendo Switch 2 as well by taking advantage of the Joy-Con 2 capabilities, just like it was done so well in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Our first impressions of Resident Evil Requiem have been very positive. Capcom has managed to create an experience that offers two very different sides of the series without either one losing its essence. The little we played of Leon has given us vibes similar to Resident Evil 4. Action without losing the horror and tension that have always defined the franchise. Meanwhile, Grace's sections took us right back to the best feelings of the very first Resident Evil. A brilliantly constructed map, enemies that constantly catch you off guard, and the ongoing uncertainty of not knowing what's behind every door. This is real survival horror, the kind that makes your hands all sweaty and makes you think every move through before you make it.
Calm down.
Resident Evil Requiem seems to have all the ingredients to become one of the most complete entries in the saga. If you're looking for action, Leon gives you just that. If you prefer classic horror, you'll love Grace's sections. And if you're a Resident Evil fan who wants them both, you've got an unmissable date on February 27th on Nintendo Switch 2.